Welcome to Geekview Tavern. In this episode, 4 comic book and animation veterans belly up to the bar to explain why they love Marvel's original Master of Kung Fu series, which is very different from the Shang-Chi movie. Remember to like the video, share it with friends, and please subscribe. Okay, Skeeter, hit the intro.
I just love this series.
Welcome to Geekview Tavern. I'm your bartender, Dave Olbrich. I was the publisher at Malibu Comics. On my left, as you're looking at your screen, is Ed Catto. He's an instructor at Ithaca College School of Business, managing director of Agenda, founding partner of Captain Action Enterprises. That sounds important. Contributing writer of Back Issue Magazine, Overstreet Price Guide, and an illustrator at Airship 27 and Ahoy Comics. So yeah, he's kind of a big deal. Right below Ed on your screen is my partner in crime, the guy permanently seated at the end of the bar, creator of Dinosaurs for Hire, founder of the Ultraverse, Emmy Award-winning writer, Tom Mason. Yay! Thanks, Tom, for being here.
You're very welcome. Thanks for having me.
And right below me on the screen is producer and writer Shaun McLaughlin, known for Superman, Batman, Pinky and the Brain, and claims he's only been arrested.
Perfect record. One arrest, no convictions.
Only one arrest, no convictions. Yeah, that's right.
There was a reason.
Okay.
The policeman asked me why the chair went through the plate glass window. I didn't know the guy was going to duck.
Oh, there you go.
That's why I'm drinking coffee.
So really, it's the chair's fault for changing trajectory at the last moment.
That's right. That's right.
So we're all here today because we are all lovers of the original run of Marvel's Master of Kung Fu, featuring Shang-Chi, who's about to be in a movie as we record this, and I'm sure some people will watch this later and they'll have already seen the movie. We have not yet seen the movie. But we're not here for that. We're here to talk about how great the comic book series was. And I can tell you, when I was 14, 15, when I should have been getting interested in dating and sports and cars and girls, I stayed in comics because I loved Master of Kung Fu and I loved Tomb of Dracula. So it was one of the 2 comic books that kept me reading comics and really enjoying them.
Well, I don't think it needs to be a binary choice where it's like, oh, it's Master of Kung Fu or it's dating or sports and cars.
Tom, you're just showing off now.
That singular focus. Oh man,
we can cut that out now, right?
we can cut out anything you want. Although I have the scissors.
I understand.
Dave is the Moyle of the show.
Oh Lord! Oh my goodness! So if you wanted to go back to the very beginning, Shang-Chi started with Marvel Special Edition number 15, which was running Sergeant Fury reprints before that. What?
Actually, it's not called Marvel Special Edition. It's called Special Marvel
Edition. Special Marvel Edition, you're right.
Which is easily the worst title of any book in the Marvel Universe.
Yeah. It may be the worst title they ever created, for sure, yeah. You're right. It was Special Marvel Edition. If you look at Marvel Special Edition, you'll probably find it.
Marvel Triple Action is up there because now I think that's like a number 3 hit on Pornhub.
Right. Yeah. But Special Marvel Edition sounds like it was named by the guy who runs the elevator in the building.
So, but by two issues later, on number 17, they were already calling it Master of Kung Fu. So the first issue of Master of Kung Fu is actually number 17. For you collectors out there, if you want the first issue of Master of Kung Fu, it's number 17.
And that issue's gone bananas, right? In the back issue market.
I'm not paying the least bit of attention.
In the days before the internet, wasn't like numbering things like that just made you nuts.
Sure.
I need to find the first one. And there is no first one. What are you telling me? There's no first one.
Well, you could drive yourself crazy trying to find something.
Well, the publishers would never do that now. Nowadays, they'd never do that because they want to take advantage of publishing at number 1.
Which conversely has made number 1 completely meaningless now.
Yeah. Right. Absolutely true. So Shang-Chi was created by Steve Englehart and Jim Starlin, although they have almost nothing to do with why the series is so great, in my opinion.
Yeah,
I'd agree. Yeah,
I think they're perfectly legendary creators, but on this particular book, it's not why we all love the book.
I can't speak for any of them because I wasn't there, and so I don't really know. But it feels like it was a throwaway book. You know, we got these Sergeant Fury reprints that aren't doing anything. We can't get the license to the Kung Fu TV show. We know that the Kung Fu movies are really popular in Times Square, and so let's do something that seems like Kung Fu, that, you know, is our own thing. And oh look, Englehart's free, Starlin's free. Let's give them this thing to do. And it doesn't feel like it feels like they did it, but it feels more workmanlike than the stuff that they really love.
Yeah, although I could see a scenario where Englehart pitched it. I think that's possible as well, knowing Steve and his San Francisco background and how all those movies went heavily into a lot of the theaters.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
In Northern California at the time. So I could see either way.
My introduction to the character was a friend of mine in junior high saying, "Oh, you gotta read this comic because it's like a James Bond, but it's a comic." You know, so I came on board with the. I didn't even really get the Fu Manchu connection because I came on board with the first issue that introduced Razor. So when Nayland Smith is starting to send him out on other missions.
Right, but you picked a really good spot to come in.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, from then on, it's a freight train for sure.
You know, like Jimmy said, it's just like James Bond, but it's a comic.
That's the thing too, because
I kind of want to meet Jimmy now.
Yeah. But the thing about Marvel up until that time, up until the Razor Fist character, is that a lot of their villains are just, oh, he's a big lizard, oh, he's a big rhino, oh, he's a big whatever, oh, it's the kingpin of crime, he's got a suit and a tie, and then now you've got. Holy crap, here's this guy with razors for a hand who looks like he totally stepped out of a James Bond knockoff movie or some kind of Hong Kong cinema thing, and he's not taking any. He just, every time he turns around, he's slicing somebody's head off.
Right, and almost because he has no choice but to do that.
Yeah. How were you introduced to the character, Ed?
So I came on board a little bit late as well, but then quickly I went back and tried to find those issues because the comic shop owner, very, very similar to Shaun, was saying, well, look what this artist is doing. All these guys are actually, real actors, Marlon Brando and kind of Sean Connery's son. And it blew my head off, right? Like, I just love this series. And, it was a freight train. This was one of those books, saved for the bottom of the pile because I wanted to savor it, because very, very wordy, and look, let's just really enjoy it. Oh yeah, there you go. Yeah, Marlon Brando,
wordy,
amazing, right?
Yeah,
wordy is an excellent choice.
There are a lot of words in here, but look at how much he just photo refed Brando for Larner.
Yeah, and he photo referenced Bruce Lee for Shang-Chi and Connery for Clive, and that seemed like super cool at the time. This is of course before Amy Grant sued Marvel over the change cover. So it was allowed back then, but at the time, that was like
and we knew in those days there would never be a movie of Master of Kung Fu. Never. I bet $1 billion.
There was no chance, right?
Yeah.
So look at that.
Look at Gulacy just photo stealing some shot of Bruce Lee.
In those days, it's hard to find the photo reference for anything like that. Where are you going to find a stack of photos of Bruce Lee?
I mean, even when I started, when I started in Warner Brothers, we had to call the research department to send us pictures.
Yeah, but still, guys, Joe Jusko was explaining to me that no magazine leaves his house until he's ripped out what he needs. It still goes through, and you gotta admire the discipline.
Yeah, that's practical for sure.
I was much the same when I was 15, but probably for different reasons.
One of the things I noticed about the early ones was, first of all, when Englehart and Starlin created the character, Shang-Chi went off and assassinated somebody on his father's behalf, and then felt bad about it. Doug Moench come in and immediately resurrected the guy that was supposed to be dead. So he completely undid the origin. Kind of cool and interesting. The other thing was that the narration was so important because you got to see these eye-popping visuals, but all of the caption boxes were actually this running narration in the lead character's head, and they didn't do that at all in other comics that I remembered back in the day.
That was probably one of the first times, at least the first times it was done regularly. Of course, now we don't use thought balloons anymore, but that was probably groundbreaking or near groundbreaking at the time.
Well, it seemed very deep. compared to the other comics at the time, because it's a character who actually thinks about his actions as opposed to just going out and doing stuff, and he's constantly questioning his motives and the motives of the people around them, which is pretty heady stuff for a comic book, especially when you're 14, 15.
Right,
So
which
it's
is
not
great because
just
you'd
all
have that
action.
juxtaposition, right? Where you'd be talking about this philosophical stuff about how he was aboard what he was doing, and the pictures were him like beating up 3 guys.
right. Which is actually kind of, I studied Hungar Kung Fu for a while, and that's sort of like true to the idea of there's this dichotomy in the way people are and what we think and what we do are 2 different things, and the idea is to try and merge them.
Also, he's the point of view character for the audience, because
Right.
he's the guy, he's the quiet guy off in the corner, more or less, and he's watching, he's immersed in this world of really crazy people. Like, here's a guy that looks like Marlon Brando, here's a guy who could be the son or the cousin of James Bond and Sherlock Holmes, here's a guy with razors for hands, here's a guy who looks like Groucho Marx, here's a guy who looks like W.C. Fields, here's this little funny guy, Bernanke, and here's...
Oh, God, I love Brynaki.
Here's Lee Ko Woo, and here's all these other people who are trying to... Yeah, there. Is that Gil Kane?
Gil Kane did a whole pile of Master of Kung Fu covers.
This was one I sent to Dave to put up because, to me, this for being my generation, this was a cover that really grabbed me and a story that really grabbed me because it's obviously referencing the Avengers and the Cybernauts.
Oh, that's
The
interesting.
TV show.
So Moench is the Avengers TV show, the British TV show.
Yeah.
So Moench is pulling in from all these influences that you didn't see elsewhere in comics, and Gulacy was more than up to the challenge of taking this and then taking it to the next level with the
Right,
art.
but they didn't let him do the covers for a long time. Like, Gil did almost all the covers from number 26 to number 42. He did 15 of them. And was this one of your first ones, Shaun, right there?
Yeah.
How great is that?
Which
That's a
is funny
great cover.
because
You can see somebody now. I could see an editor now saying, "Well, you can't show the villain from the back. What's the matter with you?" Or something. And
Right.
it's perfectly great.
During that time period, what you had to do is you had to survive on splash pages like this.
look at that.
Look at Gulacy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Holy dolly.
Yeah, it's Salvador Dali for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, and even as a kid, I recognized that.
Yeah, here's another splash page with Gulacy just teaching everybody how it's done.
Oh.
Oh, see?
Yeah.
Right, it's like a movie
Yeah.
poster. There's
Yeah,
Jet
it's
Li.
like,
very
the
much.
movie poster for sure.
Yeah.
It's
So
sort of
cinematic.
it's sort of like Eisner too. I was thinking about that when I was getting ready to do this and talk about this, and some of the pages I sent Dave were like, I realized that Gulacy really was looking at the Eisner stuff, figuring out how to tell a story. It's like Eisner and Steranko had a kid, and they got Steranko's design sense, but Eisner's ability to actually turn out a book.
Yes.
Yeah, I like that thought a lot, Shaun, because I think too many times Gulacy gets maligned as this Steranko clone, and I'm a big Gulacy fan on a lot of levels, but I think he is much more than that. And when you speak to like his level of storytelling, that's something very special, distinct from that Steranko influence, and a lot of that is like from the greats like Eisner.
And also
So,
you can
I'm so glad you said that, Ed. Watch this.
Oh yeah,
That's a double page spread. And
Yeah.
look at the storytelling. And there's no balloons in any of that, but you get the whole thing. And then he just designed this entire like Fantasyland city inside this mountain.
yeah.
See, now that's
But the page design itself, the page of the action page, the design and layout of that page is all consistent with one idea, and it's telling these 4 different things that are happening simultaneously
Yeah.
and lead you into that. I wouldn't malign him as a Steranko clone. He took the ideas and went to the next level, put out a pretty impressive body of work
Absolutely.
compared to what Steranko did.
look at how everything goes together. The coloring is beautiful for the time. The storytelling itself is great. To take Shaun's analogy even further, this is like if Enter the Dragon and James Bond had a baby.
Yeah.
You know,
And Enter the Dragon was, basically a spy story. It was basically
Yes.
a James Bond story. It was
right. And who knows how many of those we would have gotten later had Bruce Lee actually lived. Who knows what kind of great movies we would have gotten. My other point, before I retire, it didn't really matter which inker he had. You showed pages where Tom Sutton was the inker, Pablo Marcus was the inker, and Dan Adkins was the inker, and they all look great. They all look like Gulacy.
Jack Abel too. If you look at the Jack Abel issues,
I mean,
they're-
Gulacy's pencils must have
make you
been
drool.
tight like skin on a grape.
Can we go back to a page with Shang-Chi on it for a second? Just There's something I want to touch on just while we're talking about the coloring. Oh, that's a great one, Dave. What a great choice, because you've got the 1950s.
Right, I've got Fu Manchu's hand in there too.
Fu Manchu yellow claw with the light yellow and the Shang-Chi, and you look at it now and it's still just like, okay, you started with Fu Manchu, so you've set the bar pretty high, but you managed to jump over it with this orange skin tone.
Yeah, I remember somebody wrote into one of the letters pages in Master of Kung Fu asking about, hey, what the heck's the deal with the skin coloring? And they were explaining they only had X number of colors to choose from, and they wanted to make sure that Shang-Chi looked different.
I dismiss that as a BS answer, because we've seen coloring of that era that was just absolutely top notch. Like, you look at what Neil Adams was doing with those exact same color palette. He got beautiful coloring.
So it's like their excuse is that the character's silhouette and the fact that he's wearing red pajamas is not enough to tell us that he's different than the other people.
I don't know. I'm just telling you that they blame the
I know.
available color palette.
Like, I can't tell the lizard apart from the rhino.
So yeah, Gulacy did his first issue in 18, became the regular artist on 29, and then almost all of his first year's worth of comics had covers by Gil Kane on them. Hard really to go wrong there.
Yeah, well, I think they were doing something right, because, at that time, this was one of the top sellers. Like, surprisingly, it sold so well. It may have been just having Kung Fu in the title and big letters in the logo, but, I tend to believe the book was so good.
I never paid any attention to the sales.
There were other Kung Fu titles at the time that didn't do that well. I don't think Richard Dragon was flying off the shelf.
Think about what Marvel did, even with Sons of the Tiger. The Sons of the Tiger were terrible. That was a terrible idea.
And Iron Fist never.
Like the Mod Squad with right? One black, one white, one whatever, right?
But there was no Tyge Andrews, and that was the deciding factor.
Master of Kung Fu isn't dependent necessarily on the Asian elements, and the Kung Fu stuff almost doesn't matter because Doug Moench is in charge.
Right.
It's not really about a Kung Fu fighter. It's really about all this great spy stuff.
Well, he constructed a compelling mythology.
Yes. The reason I love Master of Kung Fu so much, and the reason why, unlike Ed, is I read it first book out of the gate. Like, as soon as I got home from 7-Eleven, that was the book that I read. To me, it was in a pocket Marvel universe. And yeah, sometimes Spider-Man might show up, but they had created this world that was really separate from Marvel, that stood outside of Marvel and was its own continuity. If you're like me and you're between James Bond movies, there's this thing that comes out every month or whatever that is just, it's like James Bond in a comic book, like what Shaun's friend was saying. I would read it, and then when I got the next issue, I would go back and I would reread the previous issue so that I would get a fuller experience. I would basically make myself a mini graphic novel experience.
Yeah.
The whole thing, because it was deep enough.
The other thing is that for guys like us at this time, the James Bond movies had flipped over to Roger Moore, and they're becoming progressively more and more parody movies. So this is like a more serious take on spycraft and stuff like that. And it seemed like it had some kind of authenticity to it that the James Bond movies at the time didn't have.
The Sean Connery movies were also showing up on TV in regular rotation at around the same time.
Right.
And there was this belief, certainly in my teenage brain, that Doug Moench knew stuff. Like, he was he a spy in real life? Did he know spies? Did he, he seemed to know so much about stuff. What books is he reading? What movies is he watching that I could watch too? Because he was pulling together all of this stuff in a way that I couldn't conceive of, and yet there it was.
Like, there's some kind of connection to reality here that I'm just this far away from getting. So, making that jump to Moench knowing something we don't was, not that different.
There was, Tom, I agree, there was like such a sense of urgency, right? Like, this was one of those books, and it always seemed like it was like 6 issues and then a finale and then kind of a palate cleanser, and then it'd start to build up to something. And you kind of like signed on to that rhythm, and that was great. The other thing I wanted to say is my love for Master of Kung Fu led me to read the Fu Manchu novels.
Really?
My library of all places had these novels, and they're maligned today because they're so many racist elements in them. they're difficult to kind of overlook all those things. But they had that kind of like early Fleming, like feel in some ways. They were actually published over a really long period, but Master of Kung Fu was a part of that big tapestry.
Yeah, but let's be fair that they're maligned correctly.
Absolutely.
And if I don't say that, my part Asian kids are going to kill me in my city.
Oh yes, absolutely.
But they do have this feel like it's a big world out there, and that feeds into this comic book really well.
Yeah, and Doug wasn't afraid to go to science fiction-y places and really get outrageous. Like the epic that he did from 46 through 50, where he had other characters.
Oh, yeah.
He had the other characters during the narration, and the whole plot was that Fu Manchu is going to basically blow up the moon to save the Earth.
Yeah.
Great. That's great stuff. There's spaceships, and there's all sorts of wacky stuff. Shang-Chi's sister tortures Reston and puts a big spider on his chest, and it's wonderful stuff. Really super melodramatic and just amazing.
To those of you who don't hang out with Olbrich as often as I do, please understand that he talks about this incessantly. those 4 or 5 issues, they connected with him in such a way that it's almost like First Girlfriend, where he just
literally. I think it may be the best comic book story ever told. I have a hard time coming up with a better set of 5 or 6 issues that compete.
Oh,
but the thing is, it doesn't seem like there's a formula to this. It doesn't seem like it's. And there probably is one if I sit down and pull it apart enough. But I got the epic collection of Fight Without Pity, because I don't know where my comic books are anymore. And the tone changes from story to story, and the only thing that's consistent are the characters. And the characters are pretty darn consistent. They're not like they're actually. They're logicking out the character from one step to the next. They're not just filling holes in the plot and moving things around. But he's willing to take these huge jumps in theme and approach to stuff, and willing to put his hero in a place where he's really sort of overmatched, and creating a real challenge for him. And I think that's I have to think that Marvel at the time was just, we've just got too much crap going on. Just somebody get this book on the shelf.
And I think that
and they were grateful for the good sales, but probably only Moench and the editors understood it.
Well, I think
nobody above the book editor probably understood the book at all. All right, boys. See you next time. Thank you for stopping by Geekview Tavern.
Thanks for visiting Geekview Tavern. Remember to like, share, subscribe, and click the bell to get notified. Come back soon.